2025 has been a bittersweet year, and for more of us, bitter than sweet. I mean, all the way from multiple wars to AI-generated brain rot videos, we've pretty much seen everything. You see, the world is shifting more rapidly than ever before, and uncertainty is at an all-time high, and as a result of that, expectations that people are setting for themselves are more likely to not get met than ever before. And that leads me to the point of this video. If you're somebody who had a year that was worse than expected, or a year that was kind of disappointing overall, I have to tell you something very important, and that is that you're not the only one. There are a lot of people who think exactly like you, including me, and the goal of this video is not just to share all the shit experiences that I've been through so you can have a little bit of reassurance that you're not the only one, but to also give you free science-backed lessons that you can implement to approach 2026 from an overall more positive perspective. And I don't want to waste your time, which is why I would say, let's get straight into my personal story. But as you can see out here, it's pretty damn cold. So let's go back inside. Anyway, we're back. So in 2025, in January, I told myself I wanted this year to be the year in which I generate enough income so that I can move out, travel the world, and meet new people. And by looking back on all the events that unfolded over this year, it's fair for me to say that that's exactly what not happened. This year was definitely a year full of surprises, a lot of negative surprises. So let me take you through what happened. This is, by the way, not going to be in a chronological order because this would just totally blow out the scope of the video. So anyway, let's first start with my physical health. So I was about sick for a total of 7 times this year. When we look at how many days, or better said, how many weeks I was out due to sickness this year, we're totaling up at about 9 weeks. So that's more than 2 months just being sick, not being able to work properly, having a sore throat, having coughs, and the longest of those sicknesses was a flu that was about 3 to 4 weeks, in which I was pretty bad. I lost my taste for about a month. You can imagine what effect that has on your overall well-being. Besides being sick for 9 weeks, I was also diagnosed with asthma. Unfortunately, first after not being able to breathe properly for 2 weeks. The half of my summer was kind of ruined because even though I had my inhaler, just hopefully the camera focuses, I cannot tell, I still had troubles breathing because for the summer we had a lot of hot and dry days. So again, to those 9 weeks of being sick, I probably had to add another 4 to 6 of being kind of out due to just having breathing problems. But not only internally was I screwed over, but also externally. My acne got very bad over the year, especially Q1 and Q2, mostly due to a result of stress. I mean, I'm gonna go into exactly what happened in like a couple of seconds. It got better slowly after, and now, as you can see in the video, it's mostly gone. I'm also just gonna put in some pictures here just so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm not lying to you. I'm not trying to make any of this shit up, by the way. Moving away from all the things that fucked me up physically, let's more move to the things that kind of fucked me up mentally. So I burned out in the end of Q1 this year. This was a result of a business idea that I was working on for 10 months, not working in the last moment. So everything I was working on, all that work just felt like it was worth nothing anymore, and I kind of collapsed as a result of that. I didn't just collapse because the business idea failed, but also because in the period leading up to that business launch, I was not balanced properly. I did not do that much with other people. I was sick the month before from having that flu, and due to being sick before from the flu, I felt this need to make up for the 4 weeks where I wasn't able to work properly, so I just put even more unnecessary stress on myself, and when the whole idea collapsed, then that stress all came falling down on me, taking a real toll. And yeah, after me burning out and reevaluating the whole purpose and meaning of my life and whether I should even have the will to keep on going, I kind of had to start my life over from scratch, figure out a new life strategy. And that was, of course, guided by a lot of self-doubt, a lot of uncertainty, also a lot of disappointment within myself. Because if you remember the expectation that I had at the beginning of the year, the more I got into the year, the more I drifted away from it. The more I just watched it slip out of my hands. And that was, of course, something very disappointing. At the same time this year, I was diagnosed with a lot of things I didn't expect to have, like a deviated septum and a specific gene mutation. The deviated septum was able to explain why I was so sick, why I was so vulnerable to being sick, why I had so many sinus infections over the last years. And the gene mutation was able to better describe why I had such problems with my mental health at a young age. I mean, at least to a certain extent. I'm not totally saying that a gene mutation is responsible for my misery. Absolutely not. There are so many other things responsible for why you are not doing well with your life. That's also something I want to say to all of you, because it's not just me that is affected by this. We easily like to blame our circumstances to things we cannot control, like genetics. You can't really change them, you're just born with them, which is why they're often an easy target. But when we sum up all the negative and unfortunate events that happened this year, I still have to acknowledge that I lost about 4 months of my best productive self. So it does something with your head, and it forces you to cultivate a way of seeing life that is more beneficial to your overall mental health, which is why the free lessons that I'm going to give you later on in this video are going to do their best job at trying to reflect that. But you see, 2025 was not just a bad year. There were definitely also good moments to it, and I think that's something that you can also resonate with as well. Sometimes it's just very hard to remind yourself of them, especially when you have such a negative cognitive bias. I mean, I'm gonna go more into that in the third lesson today, so stay tuned for it. One of the points that I want to make with this video is that even though you were challenged in a year, it doesn't have to be shit. And even though it feels like everything's working against you, or that things are just not as good as they potentially could be, especially if you compare yourself to other people, you could still have things much worse. Which is why I think the solution is not to be a victim of the unfortunate events that happened and just indulge in feeling sorry for yourself, but rather to figure out what went right and what the lessons were that you learned. And when it comes to me personally, I learned 3 lessons that, with the help of some of the research now that I've done for this video, are also rooted in science, so that you don't just have a conjectural explanation from me, but also an explanation from the science. It would be important for me to mention that, of course, the lessons that I give you are from a perspective of how I've been through life, and just because I give you advice doesn't mean that it will apply to your life. That's something you have to be aware of. This is, of course, a mistake you also see online, that people just take advice from people and do not tailor it to their own lives, but this is something I highly recommend you doing. So the first lesson is, don't make your worth dependent on your productivity, but rather on your ability to be productive. This may seem the same at first, but there's a very small distinction, but yet very crucial distinction that we have to make here. You see, when you make your worth or well-being dependent on how much you were able to work or how productive you were able to be within your life, you fall into this trap of constant busyness. So where you unnecessarily try to fill in all the free time you have with being busy. What this does is it creates a unnecessarily high load of stress that dysregulates your nervous system. And through your nervous system being dysregulated, a specific region, the so-called ventromedial prefrontal cortex, so the brain region that is behind your skull, about here, I mean, you have 2 brain hemispheres, so about here, it gets inhibited in its function. Of course, the more stressed you are, the more strongly it is inhibited. I think you understand. This brain region is involved in evaluating your personal values and making sure that the decisions that you make are actually aligned with who you want to be and what you want to become. And I mean, you can imagine what happens if it's inhibited in its function, right? Essentially what happens is that the more you work in order to feel worthy, or the more you grind in order to feel satisfied, the more you physically and cognitively lose your ability to tell if what you are doing is actually something that you stand behind and something that is meaningful to you in your future. And this is a topic I heavily had to deal with because, as you remember from a couple minutes ago, the business idea shortly before it launched was not really aligned with who I wanted to become, and as a result of that I had to totally reevaluate myself. But in this process of working towards the goal of launching it, even in the process, like 1, 2, 3 months before, I already knew that I was slowly drifting away from what the idea was standing for, and yet I still continued because I felt this pressure to just, be busy and doing something, because being busy was better than not being busy. And that's why this distinction of moving your obsession from being as productive as possible to making sure that you're in a condition, in an optimal condition that allows you to be productive as possible, is so crucial. Because if you prioritize your physical and mental health first, conditions that have to be met without exceptions if you want to be as productive as possible, you make sure that your nervous system stays regulated. And what does that mean? You think more sharply, and the decisions that you make are more strongly aligned with who you truly want to become. The second lesson is, do not focus on maximizing the future, but rather on maximizing the present. You see, we often think that focusing on the now is counterproductive because the future is what eventually will become the present. And this is exactly how I thought at the beginning of this year, but that has totally changed, and I'll explain to you exactly why. If a future version of you is somebody who, just try to imagine what this future successful version of yourself looks like. Somebody who probably has good physical and mental health, who has good social connections, who's disciplined, who's consistent. But wait, you can do all of these things now already. Like, you can work on improving your physical and mental health now. You can work on maximizing your time now. You can work on improving your relationships with other people now. Like, all these things that you would associate with an optimal future version of yourself, you could work on doing now. So I think maximizing your future just results in more thinking than actually doing. And if we look at the science behind this, excessive overthinking about the future or contemplation leads to 2 things. The first one is, the more you get too fixed onto a specific version of yourself in the future, the less you give reality to actually make that future come to fruition. Because, you see, there's a huge difference between what is going on in your mind and what actually reality allows to happen. There are so many factors that you cannot influence that can influence you though. And that's something that's just a variable that a lot of us don't even think about when imagining all the things that we plan to achieve within the future. What this all eventually leads to is a lot of negative reward prediction errors when, the future actually becomes the present and you become more and more disappointed. And that results in lower dopamine, right? With every negative reward prediction error, your dopamine drops, leaving you less motivated for pursuing the activity that you actually want to pursue. And that, of course, is exactly what you not want, right? You want to be motivated. You want to have this natural force that is behind you when it comes to accomplishing your goals. But by focusing too much on what you can be, you achieve the exact opposite. The second way how you fuck yourself up by doing this is by constantly overthinking and contemplating, by staying so much in your head because the future is just something you can't live in. It's something you can just only live in virtually or in your imagination. You overactivate the so-called default mode network in your brain, and this is at least what studies show. Chronic overactivation of the default mode network leads to disorders like depression. And I mean, this makes totally sense, right? Just in combination with the negative reward prediction errors, plus you being in your head too much, things not coming to fruition as you planned. Yeah, that results in you being disappointed and feeling miserable, and that's exactly how I felt in the end of Q1 2025. So to sum this lesson up, is a good present built by a good future? No, it's built by a good past. So just imagine how it is with your future. Is a good future built by even more imagination about the future? By an even more futuristic future? No, it's built by a good present, which is why you should focus not on maximizing your future, but on maximizing your present. The third lesson is, your current state doesn't define who you'll permanently be, so don't act like it. You see, when we're in these states of uncertainty and self-doubt, so in these states where we are forced to question if our existence on this planet even has a meaning and if we should even keep on moving forward, one very likely falls into this trap that just because right now your conditions are shit or unfavorable, that's how they always will be. And according to the science, this notion has its own specific name, and it's called cognitive tunneling. So a biological state where your mental aperture, in quotation marks, that's how it's phrased here, narrows so much that you literally lose the ability to perceive alternative paths or future possibilities. And while preparing this video, I wrote a short paragraph on this. That's what I'm gonna read to you guys now. So, your ability to see whether there is a more optimal version of yourself waiting for you in the future is totally dependent on your perception of reality right now. You see, your brain tries to make sense of everything at literally every given moment in time. So it sees, it hears, it feels, it touches, it smells. And if the wiring of your brain is compromised due to, for example, being addicted with a substance, or if you're heavily under stress, which I think also a lot of us are, and a lot of us were this year, your ability to make a fair judgment about yourself and where you actually stand in life is also compromised. What this means is that even though you're not diagnosed with cancer, you still have both of your arms and both of your legs and the ability to walk and talk properly, these are all optimal conditions for living an amazing life, your mind will still believe that you're not capable of living one. So it's important for you to understand that just because right now things are not going well, it doesn't mean that it's going to be like that forever. And you also have to understand that the thoughts that you have in your head are likely more deceptive than helpful. This lesson I think is important for a lot of us. It's something that I wish I could have told myself more often, especially in times where I struggle to believe in myself. So if you're somebody who has the problem with believing in themselves and thinks that they're doomed just because right now their state looks shit, believe me, everything can change. There's this thing, or this lucky phenomenon called neuroplasticity, so our brain's ability to evolve and adapt to certain circumstances, which is why you have to remember, nothing's gonna happen overnight, but with time, everything can fucking change, and with that also your miserable state in life. So there you have it, my 3 most important lessons that I learned from this year, from a year that was definitely not how I expected it to be, but yet necessary. And I know that a lot of you learned lessons as well, and the only thing I can say there is feel free to share them with me. But before we end this video, I think we have to move outside one last time. Back outside we are. If there was a word that would best describe these 3 lessons, it would be alignment. You see, being aligned with the soul that you call yourself is clearly something that's very beneficial to the overall quality of your life. But there's a price that you have to pay for it. It's pain and suffering, at least for the most of us. But the good news here now is you've paid that price this year, which is why the next year is for you, and I truly believe the same for myself. So you know exactly what to do next year, or if you're watching this in 2026, to do this year. And the only thing I can say is get to work, because the milestones that you have to achieve this year will not be achieved by anyone else than you. Anyway, I wanted to make a side note, and that is that we just passed 100 subscribers a couple days ago. It was like literally the best Christmas present I could have ever wished for. I didn't expect to achieve 100 subscribers before the end of this year, but we had one video that went very well. I can link it up here. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for everybody who's subscribed, who likes the videos that I make, and the next year is going to be amazing. I have so many ideas planned, and yeah, I'm just very keen to see where this whole journey is going to go. I know that I love doing this, and that I'm going to keep on making videos, and if you are here for the ride, fuck, I mean, it's amazing. And with that, the only thing I can say is see you in the next one.